Hello, here we are once again with Mookie Tenembaum. We are exploring, as many of you already know, his disillusionist philosophy through these videos, and particularly focusing on the misalgic theory at the core of this philosophical system, which is a theory that explains human behavior in terms of aversion to suffering. We've been trying month after month for years now in this series of videos to illustrate the concepts, the rather abstract concepts in this philosophy and this theory with facts from everyday life. Sometimes we've even covered the news, so to speak, from a philosophical perspective. We discussed a lot. I remember back then about the COVID-19 pandemic. We've covered the war in the Ukraine that's still now taking place. And we usually try to focus on subjects from daily life to make the philosophy more graspable, so to speak. Today, we are going to discuss economics. Of course, not economics in the classical sense, but precisely economics as they relate to suffering, and in particular growth, as it has a connection with misalgic explanations. So the disillusionist economy is the subject today.
Okay, first of all, I have to remind people about disillusionism and the misalgic issue. What we do all our lives is to avert suffering, and averting suffering means many things. Means that I will try not to suffer, but I will have to sacrifice certain suffering to get to be able to forestall any future or actual suffering. So I will get a vaccine, so I will not get sick. That's the most simple example. But when you think about in general, is that we have a certain amount of priorities, and we work with suffering priorities. As I say, you get the vaccine, and then you apparently you're not going to get sick and so forth. So you endure that suffering for that one. That system of priority is personal, and in the economy is the same. The whole economy is always really an economy of managing, administering the administration of suffering. Although the illusion, in this case, the state, does not suffer because it's an illusion. Yes, the idea is that its subjects are supposed to suffer the least possible. Again, not each one of them only, but sometimes by proportion. So utilitarianism, the system by which it's the best for the most amount of people, sometimes people will suffer, and in the balance there is a suffering index that comes out of this kind of balance. Of course, if you are the one who is suffering, if you are the one who pays taxes for somebody else's not to work, then it's very clear. Yes, you're suffering, so he will not suffer. But they will tell you your suffering is less important than his today. Yes, not forever. So this is the whole idea in the economy. But I'm not going to the macro part. I will stay in disillusionism in the micro part. And in the micro part, the truth is that there are that we are made we are really three computers. Let me begin with an animal. Okay, a kangaroo, yes, does not have future, does not have past, has only here and now. Every animal, your dog, a dolphin, a crow, even the most sophisticated animals have only now. That's it. There is nothing else for them. We, on the other hand, besides having that computer in which, again, we are, I will explain, I will show how computer number one is expansionist, because here comes the issue. The issue is the more the better. This will be how we live our lives. The more, the better. Of course, the more good stuff, yes, or neutral stuff, but of course not the more suffering, the better. Suffering is seen as a minus, and the other thing seen as a plus. So we tend to expand ourselves, and computer number one, in this case, the animals, will fight for territory. Why they fight for territory? Because that's in their program. And why is that in the program? Because those who did not expand or did not expand that way are gone, like the other 99% of species. And this is not only animals, even plants have, expand themselves. So everything expands, and we as humans expand ourselves like animals. But now we have computer number two. We do have past and we do have future. Now, here begins a whole new story. And the new story, there is a new suffering. A suffering, animals in general not suffer, but we have a specific suffering that has to do with the future, and that is fear. Let me explain. Animals do not have fear. That's a big statement, and I can prove it to you. What animals do is display of what we do when we have fear. So when I have fear, yes, I will shake, or I will freeze, or I will fight. Depends on whatever decision they will. That's when I have fear, and there will be external displays of fears. Maybe sweat. Yes, you know, people. I had a cold sweat. You know. Now the animal does the same thing. So you see, he is suffering himself. He also has fear. No, it doesn't have any fear. What you see is a display that allows the animal to communicate to other animals about the danger. Every time I put if I put my finger in the fire and I shout, "Ow!" that will come out automatically. Yes, why? So the other people do not have to go through the same experience of putting the finger in fire. Now, this is for animals too, but animals do it again, and I want to clarify, they do it as a display. They do not have fear, and thus they don't suffer. They never suffer. Animals are not incapable of suffering. But this is not the issue. The issue is us. And when I bring it, so we have fear. And fear means that our expansion is not only here and now, but it is 10 years from now. Let me hear your opinion, Florencio.
No, I was listening to you and remembering, this is not mine, this is a great thinker called Georg Simmel, who used to say that survival and surplus have the same prefix for a reason, that in all survival, in all life, there is a need for more. There is a need for expansion. And I think you put it quite clearly. This, I think, even affects life in plants and bacteria and maybe fungi. Of course, animals eat more if they can, reproduce more if they can, and we are part of that general trend. But the tricky bit, I think, is this last that you mentioned, the one in which we are no longer engaging here and now, but also looking towards the future, because here expansion can go wild, because I'm not worried about eating more now. I'm maybe worrying about what will I eat 3 decades from now, or maybe what will my grandchildren eat once I'm gone. So now growth becomes, I guess, potentially endless. You know, you spoke about animal territory. We hear every day how people are planning to expand our territory into different planets for our descendants to live there centuries from now, maybe. So it's gone wild in a way. Now that we are no longer wild animals, the expansion and the growth are wilder than ever.
Well, it's growing. Think about it. It's growing wild because there is something we misunderstood, and that is that we're going to die. And when we die, yes, the whole universe disappears for us. You have no children when you're dead. There is nothing. Of course, now you can think of yourself dead, yes, and your children or your great-grandchildren or your great-great-grandchildren. The whole planet survival project that has been placed upon us by the different illusions is using that. So, but you see, if I don't have a limit, then my expansion will have no limit. You see, the idea is this: if I need food for the next week, I go to the supermarket and I buy food for the next week. But if I will need it for the next month, then I have to buy it for the next month. And then I keep on buying stuff for future. Now, interestingly enough, we're talking about uncertainty. It's incredible. The same uncertainty that gives a fear is the one that makes us calculate incorrectly without, because what happens if tomorrow there is a catastrophe and people, we just came out from a pandemic. So, it's not anymore in the television, that the world freezes or the world goes heated or we hit by an asteroid, or I don't know. There is always something new that we're going to be to happen. So then you start. So it's not that you think what I'm going to eat tomorrow, which was in the past was like this. People did not know if they're going to eat tomorrow. And then they were happy when they knew that they were going to eat the next day and the next day and the next day and the next day. And then start the expansion. What if I need this and what if I need that? But that is not enough because we also have that push that comes as animals. So we expand. When we stop expanding, when we start contracting, when the others do that, and you find they are the limit of your expansion. Of course, nature is also a limit for your expansion. So we expand because the more, the better. And up to a certain point, it makes sense. Then you get the law of diminishing returns because now you are thinking about what my great-grandchildren will have money to study law. Maybe there will be no law by when they are there, or at least the faculty will be gone. Doesn't matter. So you start, projecting that work that buffer that you create. Yes, and every time the buffer is bigger, it's expansionist, and it is going to. The only thing that will stop you is somebody else thinking about the same thing, or let's say on a piece of land. So I want one more piece of land, so my grandchildren will have it.
We get to the other side of the coin right here. No? It's like expansion came out of aversion to suffering, but it can lead to sufferings of its own. If you expand too much, now you are exposed, so to speak, to a new type of suffering. It's not that of scarcity, agreed, but it's a new type of suffering that has to do with defending and protecting and managing all the territories, so to speak, that you now control. It's a tricky balance there. You can go too little or too large.
You know that in polygamic societies, polygamia really exists with people who are rich. Poor people don't have 3 wives.
Yeah.
Of course, if your wife cannot have children, and children were the way to show to expand yourself, then it makes sense. But today, you go to the Arab countries, and normally it is either middle class or even upper class who have more, or richer people enough that you have more. Again, remember, yes, it's all comparative with other people. How much I have, it has to be compared. If I ask you how rich you are, you will give me a certain amount in dollars or in euros or in whatever currency you want. And that would be very easy. Yes, you have more than me, I have more than you. Yes. Again, my expansion could be also be verbal. I can say that I have more than you. Yes. Expansion does not have to be territorial. We are human beings. We now have a language. We expand in the language. We expand everywhere we can. And the expansion, the physical expansion, is the basis of capitalism. Capitalism is based on the more, the better.
But this collides with what you mentioned before about taking care of the planet, with the fear for the lack of resources. And I guess this puts it in connection with the third computer that you mentioned in the beginning, right? We covered 1 and 2, but now we have the third computer in the system, which is the moral consciousness that somehow counters this trend to expansion, this trend for capitalism, at least in the current situation, right?
It's good that you say it's the current situation, because basically, if you think about it, think about a few years ago. The fatter you were, the better it was. The more children you had, the better it was. Suddenly we start having less children. Suddenly being fat, besides it's not being healthy, but of course it's frowned upon, it's less good. So suddenly more, not the rule that always more is better, started shrinking. Now comes the new idea: we have to save the planet. Thus we have limited resources. We all have to lower the amount of our expansion. We should contract. Okay. Now, I would say the way society, modern society or Western society is built is contract, contract, contract. They even talk about carbon footprint. Look, we're talking about a contraction, even if it's a metaphor, yes? You talk about the contraction of how far you go, or how do you go, and how do you travel. Now, this is one part of it. The second part of it is now AI. AI will allow you to contract without losing anything. You see, if you knew exactly how much money you will need and your children will need, exactly, the moment you have that money, you stop. That will be efficient. But since you don't know, you keep expanding. AI doesn't have that bias. AI will tell you, you need exactly this. So you take a 10%, you know, up, down. I'm not saying that people will be, you know, exactly like computers, but quite enough. Yes. So now you will have AI brings in contraction as a possibility, while the planet, or saving the planet, the whole saving the planet idea brings contraction as an idea, as a form. Now, look, it's interesting what we're talking about. We are talking about physical contraction, physical expansion. But computer number 3 will tell you, you should give 10% of your money to the poor. And that will probably help save the poor. That means that you cannot give? No, you also can give. There is no limit to how much you can expand in the abstract world. They say, look, you know something? You have just one car, a small car, electric car. You want to expand, be nicer to go to Africa, save some children. I don't know. Save the three hunch camel that exists, if it does. Stuff like that.
You left me thinking. Part of our expansion is just miscalculation. It's just inefficient, because you told me something many years ago. I just remember it. If you go to the supermarket when you are hungry in preparation for a meal, you will buy more than you will ever need. That's because you will miscalculate, because you
computer number 1 is hungry.
Computer number 1.
Now, here now.
AI, any sophisticated digital system would prevent this automatically. It will make you buy exactly what you need. No error of calculation at all. Now, this is efficiency, right? This is technology playing a part in reducing the miscalculation and reducing excess. And maybe we are right there, right? At the turning point where this becomes interfering with our expansion. And it's going to be interesting to see how it results.
Well, again, so less is better now. But I want to put a disillusionist caveat to all this, and that's very important. You know, I have told this, like, people make decisions. I want to expand there, I want to do this, I want to do that. The word won't talk about an intention. We know from other videos that intention seldom happens to us in life. Why? Because we sleepwalk. How do we sleepwalk if we seem to be taking decisions? The answer is we are not taking those decisions. We are imitating somebody else. So your shirt probably is because you saw somebody else having a shirt, or because the shop put it up there, or they gave you a discount. It doesn't matter. There is always an incentive for you to do certain things, and that incentive could be social, could be economical, and it could be based on fear. Listen, when they say this is the last tree, you know when sometimes you want to book a room in a hotel and it says it's always the same. The last 2 rooms, they
terrorize me.
Well, they create.
I know that fear well.
Of course, because they create a scarcity, a feeling of scarcity. Then computer number 1 says scarcity, go. Then computer number 2 says, wow, I will be FOMO. I will be missing out. Yes. So look, we are imitating. I will give you another example. I now have to drive tomorrow from the place I am to another place in France. And I have, and I went to Waze, it's like Google Maps. I don't know, you know it. And Waze says to me, well, it will take you 2 hours unless you want to save the planet, in which case it will be 20 minutes more, because then you have to go at 110 kilometers an hour instead of 130 kilometers an hour. Now we have Waze telling that computer number 3, giving it to computer number 3. So I don't expand. I really, first of all, I use less gas, because if you go 110 kilometers an hour instead of 130, you use less gasoline for that. That is true. And then and again, it's not that you or I need it. No, it's saving the planet. For whom? Your grandchildren, your great grandchildren, it doesn't matter. But not only that, Florencio, it goes even further. When Waze tell me that, it tells me you will arrive 20 minutes late. Wait, time is also scarce. So now you are supposed to sacrifice, to suffer, so you avoid another suffering. What is suffer? You're going to arrive 20 minutes late. You will have to look all the time at your car. In Europe there is no you cannot put the cruise control. That does not exist in Europe. So you have all the time to look that you are not going too fast. To save a planet, you will never see. Again, remember, this is abstract. There is you cannot see. If tomorrow I buy a house, 2 minutes after I take possession, I can use the house. I know the house I had, and I see the rooms, and I say, here is something that will happen in the future. You will never know. In a way, it's like a vaccine, because once you get the vaccine, you don't know if you would have been sick.
Yeah.
So you have to believe. It's based on a belief system, and that's one of the great inventions of human beings: abstract property.
But this example is so good in terms of the precise calculation that only technology allows, right? This is only now possible. If you sacrifice 20 minutes and you waste that amount of time, you will save this amount of petrol, which is money, of course, it's less money, but also less of a carbon footprint that goes into polluting. It's so neat in a way that this would have been absolutely impossible 30 years ago, even if I wanted to find the ideal speed at which to travel in terms of petrol consumption and carbon footprint. It would be hours of calculations. Now it's given to you right away by...
Look, the decision you will take with this, first of all, as you say, you have to make what I suffer more, yes? Losing time or being guilty of saving the planet. But remember, we imitate. So it's really the people who decide to cut their footprint, they do it. There is no decision really. There is really no calculation. People are doing what the other people do. There is very few moments in our life that we make a real, clear-cut, open fork decision. We've said that in several of our videos before. Intention almost never happens. It is always an interpretation in the past. Why did you do it? Because I wanted to save the planet. Why didn't you do it? Because I was in a hurry and there was a child waiting for me. Yes. Or my car, speed measure. It doesn't matter.
Crazy.
But we imitate, and it goes immediately. Afterwards, it looks like we took a decision, but it's always post factum.
Yeah, but it's just the overlapping of these centrifuge and centripetal forces, right, resulting in some line of behavior. We expanded ourselves. We grew out of our time limits, as we do, because we are animals.
We do it on purpose, so we can show them an example of an expansion.
Amazing. See you in the next one.
See you next time. Bye.
If you enjoyed the video, please like it, comment and subscribe.